Maria clutched her coffee cup tighter as she walked into the Illinois nursing home where she worked as a social worker. At just 25, she was the youngest professional on staff, but her passion for helping elderly residents burned brighter than her years might suggest. 3 months into her dream job, what started as workplace tension had escalated into something far more sinister. The clinical team, a group of nursing supervisors who had dubbed themselves the unofficial queens of the facility, had made Maria's life a living nightmare. Their weapons of choice weren't just condescending glances or whispered gossips. They wielded their perceived authority like a sword, talking over her during patient meetings, barking orders as if she were their subordinate, and treating anyone who wasn't clinical like second-class citizens. Maria's heart would race every time she heard their footsteps approaching. She'd tried keeping her head down initially, thinking it was just typical new job hazing. But when her direct supervisor started receiving anonymous concerns about her work, concerns that proved baseless when investigated, she realized this was personal. The breaking point came during a particularly heated disagreement about a patient's care. The clinical team demanded Maria discuss hospice options with an elderly man they deemed appropriate for end-of-life discussions. Maria's professional instincts screamed otherwise. The patient wasn't cognitively ready, and his family was nowhere near prepared for such a devastating conversation. When she respectfully disagreed, they didn't just challenge her judgment. They screamed at her in front of colleagues, their faces red with indignation that someone beneath them dared question their authority. But the final blow came when Maria was simply being herself. Speaking Spanish with the receptionist, her native tongue, her connection to her heritage, felt as natural as breathing. They weren't discussing patients or confidential matters. They were catching up like friends do, in the language that held their childhood memories and cultural identity. Then she appeared, one of the mean girls, marching over with the self-righteousness of a school principal. "You're not allowed to speak Spanish. It's in the employee handbook," she declared, her voice dripping with authority she didn't actually possess. Maria stood frozen, her words caught in her throat as the woman walked away, leaving her feeling exposed and humiliated. The next morning's department meeting felt like a public execution. The head of the clinical team stood before everyone, supervisors, administrators, Maria's boss, and announced her reminder about the language policy. When Maria courageously questioned whether it was appropriate for other departments to police language, the woman exploded. She slammed papers on the table, her voice rising to a crescendo of rage that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. When Maria's Hispanic colleague whispered in Spanish that this felt like discrimination, the clinical supervisor's response was swift and cutting. "It's not discrimination," delivered with such venom that it silenced the entire room. Now Maria sits at her desk, staring at her computer screen, feeling the weight of a choice that shouldn't exist in 2024 America. Should she abandon part of her identity to appease bullies? Should she continue speaking the language that connects her to her roots, risking further retaliation? Her white colleagues offer sympathetic shrugs and comments like, "If it's a rule, I guess," not understanding that this isn't just about workplace policy. It's about dignity, respect, and the right to exist authentically. The nursing home's culture of intimidation runs 7 years deep, with HR and administration offering hollow platitudes like, "Just ignore them," instead of real solutions. Maria has thrown away her employee handbook. It was thick as a novel. But now she's desperate to find it again. She's calling the Illinois Department of Public Health herself, determined to verify if this policy actually exists or if it's just another tool of oppression disguised as regulation. What would you do in Maria's shoes? How far would you go to protect your identity and dignity in a toxic workplace? What are your thoughts? Share your experiences and advice in the comments below.